If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, it's the Hour of Empower live stream. Today's word of the day is gratitude. Today's guests are two people who have been here before, so they know the ropes. Enrique and Jackie, they all both share some really great backgrounds and really great visions of the future. I want to welcome everybody. We're open to chat, and chat really drives our thinking and our ability to be as relevant and to what your point needs to be addressed. And with that said, let me turn it over to Jackie to start with, get her first impression of the word gratitude and a little catch up on what Jackie's been into. Jackie.
Thank you, John, and nice to meet you, Enrique. I love being in this space, meeting new folks and new friends, right? Gratitude for me is very important. It's an important word. I actually journal every morning. I'm wearing the More Joy shirt. This is Cindy Cohen. She has a book called More Joy, and she came up with a journal, and I was recently on a retreat. And I have her journal, and part of it is to write about the things you're grateful for. So I often think about my family, the community that I have, being able to have a home and feel safe in my home and have a job and have income. And so the things we take for granted, just kind of reframing and starting the day of, wow, look at everything I have. And one great thing that Cindy included in her journal, instead of a to-do list, is it's a get to. I get to do this, right? Like, I have to take my car to go shop. Yeah, that could be a bummer, but it's like, hey, I get to do that. I have a vehicle. I can get to places. I have income to take care of what needs to get fixed. It's a really great reframing. So gratitude is definitely a great way to start the day. In my world, I am a teacher and I've been teaching, and it's the end of the quarter here in New Jersey. So it has been a very busy time. So taking this time to just have some respite this weekend and enjoy this lovely conversation with all of you. It's lighting me up. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, wow. We could almost end on that. But we're not going to. So, Enrique, why don't you share your insights and bring everybody up to date?
Well, thank you, Don, for having me. Good to meet you, Jackie. And like I mentioned earlier, thank you for being an educator. We know that it is often a thankless job, but necessary in order for us to become the type of human beings that we want on earth. So, Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, CEO, Triad Leadership Solutions, and I focus on leadership development. But as we're talking about gratitude, I think of often of my daily ritual, I would say. The very first thing I do when I open my eyes is thank the good Lord, because not everybody made it today, right? Last night we lost a great actor from the Friends syndicate sitcom, and it happens continuously, right? And we're all often thinking, when is when is my turn? Or maybe the people don't think about it, but that is always a possibility. So having gratitude as the first stepping stone of your day is so important, because it puts into perspective the rest of the day. It really sets you up for an avenue, like Jackie was saying, where you are conscious that you're getting to have the opportunity to do what you do daily. And such a great perspective, Jackie. Thank you for sharing that. I don't journal myself. I'm a reader of the biblical text, and that's where I leave it. But just having a heart of gratitude changes the colors of your world. Period.
Well, and you're so right, because I'm so happy, to be me, to be with me, right? Because until you get there, you can't really be with anybody else
Right.
as your true self, right? So if you're fooling yourself, you're going to be fooling everybody along with you, and then
Absolutely.
it's confusing, and then that's where things don't happen. So, and the next step is, to your point, Enrique, being happy just for the moment, because the moment is pure. It's only the past and the future that crowd into that moment to make you think differently of the moment, because you're carrying legacy or, fear or hope for the future, excitement. But when are you living that moment, right? You're either reflecting on the last moment or anticipating and getting ready for the new moment. And I think to Jackie's point, rest and being the best you can to yourself will become the best you can to everyone else, right? When you're happy, when you're healthy, when you're comfortable, when you don't worry, then it makes other people duplicate through that. So in a way, everybody's a projector, and it takes feedback in addition. And that's why these interactive, live, real-time shows are important, because no one had time to think about what we're going to say next. No one knows what someone's going to ask. And with that segue, Enrique's here naturally, and up and down. Thank you for being here. Sirkin, who's a new name. I love seeing people's faces. Hi, welcome. Sirkin comes back with your shining for sure. Omar, who has the Zoom party like Jeopardy. I was on it. Really cool show. He helps kids with that show. It's actually for young kids, and he gives prizes away. So good for you, Omar. Randy's here. Hello to you. Anne Marie's here. Great to see you. Elizabeth is here. Elizabeth is going to be here Wednesday with William Gay III. So great to see you, Elizabeth. I see you popping in everywhere, learning and growing. That's the way. It's consistency. Nice to meet you. Okay. Paul is here. Paul's always here. I don't know. He has a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday 6 p.m. show of something and something and something. And I've been on him. But he's always doing new stuff. And I think that's the key. Don't get caught up in the stuff you're into. It'll change one way or the other, right? And you can make it change faster. If you just make that decision, tomorrow's going to be different, whatever different means. Hello, Jackie, my island man, Enrique, and Grandpa John. Out of reverence, not out of age. He said, my grandfather. This is my language. To be here to support and learn. It's so great when everybody starts with salutations of welcome, hi, happy to see you. Enrique comes back with changes the color of your world. It makes for a better world. How fulfilled can you be when you say, boy, I got such a great family. I got such a great group of friends. I've got a community that I helped build together that I can slip into any time of the day. All these people are open for comments and likes and shares. Everybody's open for a message, especially if it's a quality one. So, Jack, what do you think now?
This is the best part. I love the, saying hi to everyone and welcoming and bringing everyone in as the community. And it just feels like everyone is getting something that's lighting them up and filling up their soul. And so we always say, you got to fill your cup, right? You want an overflowing cup so that you can give to others. And just like you were saying, Don, is that, rest, taking care of yourself, doing what you need to do to stay healthy so that you can continue to give to others. And I'm just grateful to be here and around such good people. It's easy to get bogged down in the world, watching the news, everything that's going on. Of course, I'm always praying for world peace and for people to really be able to come together. But when you can have these moments where you can see really great people, happy people, joyful people, supportive people coming together to just share this message of gratitude, it's really beautiful. So I just want to say that I'm just grateful for all of you. And thank you for all the wonderful messages. And I saw a comment there about grateful for me wearing the More Joy shirt and not the Philadelphia Eagles shirt I did last week. But go Birds!
Well, I think that's so key about gratitude is once you have it and once you know it and you believe in it, it's always there for you. It'll never leave you. It's not something that changes by the day. Actually, it sometimes gets stronger and sometimes it gets breathtaking. You know, if you get into it, it's like, how much could one person expect? Especially relatively speaking and in context. You know, last night we had like 8 inches of snow in Denver, and I was so happy for a roof. I was so happy for heat. And I've never been without one of those two, but I'm still so happy, you know? And I think that that's really the most important thing about gratitude is being happy. And here's one thing to Jackie's point about taking a break. Only you know what you need better than anybody else. And only you can provide that for you better than anybody else. So why wait for someone to identify it and then tell you what to do or share some advice with you? You know, and it changes, and it should. You know, sometimes you're tired, sometimes you got energy, you go with what you got, and then you get back to where you're going. Let me see. Uh, okay, Rashid is here. Let me show Rashid. Greetings to all of us. Very insightful conversation. Thank you for your good work from Saudi Arabia. You know, this is universal what we're talking about. There are no boundaries, there are no passports. You know, if you're talking good stuff to good people, everybody likes it. Everybody wishes they could do more of it. And if we can create a ripple, right, that goes out to Saudi Arabia, India, you know, wherever people are, you know, and it's really special on a Sunday because it is usually a day of contemplation, of reflection, right? Why not be in a community where people are already there and want to know how can we all get there better? And, you know, it's really who you become, not what you make, that makes all the difference. So with that, Dean's here. Haven't seen Dean in a while. Dean has just an unbelievable story. I know he went down to Louisiana to be with his daughter, who I think is at Tulane, and has an incredible story of triumph. Had a procedure that was supposed to be simple, and it really put him in a whole different world, and he was able to triumph over it. So, you know, and Dean's written me so many heartfelt messages that only validates and supports what we're trying to do. One life change today is a lifetime. Paul says, I find that for me, gratitude is a lifestyle and a state of being versus a word. You know, everybody's on the same wavelength here. I'm happy to be wearing flip-flops and shorts. Well, you know, then that's what that's what you should be wearing. Good to see you. Good morning to all from my side. Renadeb, always usually the first to comment and always has the same two comments. And the second one is wonderful to join the session today. But, you know, Renadeb is teaching people how consistency, how building expectation. You know, there's a saying, be known before you're needed. And now everybody will know Renadeb is saying the same two things every day and being first to say the first two things. And he's out in India, had a great call with him. I try to talk to everybody in the audience. Charles Walker, it's great gratitude to wake up each day. Great conversation. Hello. And my great friend Enrique. And I'm sure Charles is in your community, and communities follow you and support you wherever you go. And that's the strength of it. Okay, hello, Dean. Got a couple of hellos here. We've got somebody from wild and wonderful West Virginia. Oh, it's Loyola University, New Orleans. Sorry, Dean, got it right, but appreciate it. And it's great to see you. He has so many stories. I'd reach out and talk to Dean. I mean, his story is just amazing. So we're kind of caught up. Where were we? I think it's with Enrique.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. 1 out of 2.
Well, as a military man, and to my brother Charles, a big hooah for my Army folks. So I was thinking as we were talking that, you know, gratitude is not just a thought or a feeling, it's an experience. It really is one of those things in our lives that drives us to the next level. We can't really appreciate the next step until we actually are living in the one that we're in now. because once we move forward, we can always look back and say, wow, look how far I've come. Wow, look where I am now, as opposed to where I was yesterday. And
Mhm.
that's what gratitude does. It provides an experience to the person that greets it and brings it in, and kind of like hugs it, to allow them to be able to have the fullness of life after their days have long gone by, right? And so for those that do not take the time to open their arms to embrace gratitude, they miss those steps. They miss the journey. They miss the story.
Mm.
And then after a while, your life has passed you by and you can't even account for it.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, that's so true. So, with that said, Jackie, how do you layer on to that?
I'm taking notes because
Okay.
this is what I do. I'm one of those like forever students, and I'm learning from all of you. So I commented, and I think I commented on my YouTube stream. I'm not on my LinkedIn. I don't know what I'm doing. But Paul mentioned this new definition of gratitude. I love this line: is the light in a room of darkness. That's going up on my bulletin board. I love that. Thank you, Paul, for that beautiful message. I often talk a lot about light and shadow, and I write about it in my book. But that we bring the light to the darkness, we bring the light to the shadow that's in the world, that's in society, that's in our friends and families' lives. Like sitting down and just making this space to say, I'm here for you, I'm here to listen to you. And when we bring that light, we're bringing the gratitude, right? That I have this relationship with this family member or this friend, or that I have this light in me that I can share with the world to help those to heal. I think gratitude could be very healing. I've gone through hard times in my life, I'm sure, as all of us, and we can share those stories. And it was gratitude and my faith and believing in God and prayer and my community, leaning on people, leaning on my friends and family, leaning on the people in LinkedIn community and other spaces that helped me see the way, that helped me get to the light. And I'm just so grateful for that. So I often say that it's not just about our journey as an individual, but it's about all these people we're collecting and we're connecting in this community. And that's what helps us grow as individuals. It's all of you. We're all growing from each other, just like I was sharing how I'm learning from all of you. So thank you so much for that beautiful line. And thank you, Don, for crafting this beautiful community and all of you who continue to come back. It's just really just wonderful to see.
Well, I'd love to take full credit, but everybody here has put a brick in the wall over 400 days and has brought their personality, their story. Because when Paul says something or Randy says something, we think something that we wouldn't have thought if we would have been talking to ourselves or been with someone else who might have had a comment or a question. Plus, everybody here is geared to be in this conversation. It's not like we just bumped into each other and now we're just talking, or we got some formal relationship that we can't talk as peer to peer as we should. Because if you break it down, everybody's story is as valuable as everybody else's story. Everybody's life is as valuable as everybody else's life. And everybody's happiness is as important as everybody else. So if you just start with those three, we're 100% alike at that level. Where do we want to go? And gratitude's a great start, because the other thing we forget is gratitude duplicates. When you're grateful, people around you become more grateful, right? Because they see you practicing it. And the practice is great, but the result is so much better, right? If you had a spouse or a friend and all of a sudden they found something that turned everything around for them. It could have been a relationship, it could have been a book, it could have been just anything. And you're so happy, right? Because now you don't worry about them as much. Now hey, they got their own life. And the reason why it's so important to bring everybody up on the stage is because everybody needs and appreciates being seen and heard,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're here for them. They're not here for us. You know, we're getting the visibility, we're getting the top of mind awareness, and so should they. And that's what a true community does, is it shares at every level for different reasons, but it also has access to every level. I invite everybody who's a guest to be on the show. There's enough shows, there's enough guests, you know, and why not? If you're willing to watch, you should be willing to be seen. So, you know, getting back to Dean, I'll start here. Rising tide lifts all ships. You know, it's ideas like that that when you start believing in them, it starts manifesting because you're waiting for your ship to rise now. You don't know when the tide's coming in or what's going to do it, but you know it's going to happen eventually if you hang out. Uh, Enrique is gratitude for sure. Paul says, I realize if you can find silver linings at your darkest hours, you can become unstoppable. That was Paul's show. Impossible equals I'm possible. Renadev says, Ray, gratitude is very important for all individuals to have in their respective lives. Gratitude brings out a positive outlook, enhances mental well-being, improves relationships between the people, and also reduces envy and materialism. You know, and practice that mantra every time you decide, what am I going to do next? You know, spend money or spend fun. You know, you'll always spend the money eventually. You never go without. It might take a little longer, but you know, why not? What's wrong with longer if you're having a good time, if you're growing, and if you're with the people you want? I mean, how many times would you love to go back to a family get together 30, 40 years ago and be a fly on the wall, right? Just to see how everybody really was now that you're more mature and you can enjoy it. Well, you're in rooms with people all the time. Why wait 30 years to be a fly when you can be a human right now? Uh, Paul comes back. I actually love that. And isn't everything in life an experience? Renata says a wonderful point, babe, that is gratitude duplicates. Well, everything duplicates. And if you're around all day complaining about what isn't happening and why isn't, the people around you start to get like, this person isn't as much fun. This, you know, I'm not attracted to that. You know, they say people are like elevator buttons. Some take you up and some take you down, right? You got to be with the ones going up. So, you know, we got a good foundation into this discussion. What's your new thoughts?
Oh, me next?
Okay.
Wasn't sure.
Enrique had technical problems, but you know what I do want to say, Enrique and Jackie, I see Enrique's 2023 leadership award or something that you received. Can you share that with other people?
Thank you for mentioning that. I really appreciate it. So oftentimes, and I was telling uh, about the way education is, you know, often thankless, right? We're in a service community, right? We provide a service, and oftentimes you don't really get the feedback that you desire as you're going through your day-to-day um, uh, workings of your trade. But sometimes, right? Sometimes there's these communities that are looking at your work, and one of these communities is Leaders Whom, and they had compiled a top 100 leaders for 2023. And I'm looking through their website, and I stumbled on their current list and realized that I was number 27.
Wow.
Wow, congrats. That's
So
awesome.
how wonderful to have
Yay.
communities that would look into your work, look into your impacts, and accordingly issue something like that. So I'm number one, I'm humbled and so appreciative of the time that they took to compile such a list, and then for them to consider me, uh, it's just a wonderful experience.
Well, it's well deserved, and you know, I think that's
Yes.
the key is being recognized. knowing it yourself is really cool. Getting validated by your peers or even people that you didn't realize you were in the same class with, right? And I saw April was on that post you had today, and I had a great call with April, and she's just unbelievable, stuff she's getting done. And so thank you for sharing that. And I think that inspires other people because you get to learn to live vicariously through others in ways that it's their turn, it's their time. Your turn will come, your time will come. But when they just got a job after being out of work, or they just got over something that they were challenged with, everybody is so excited for them. And it makes their excitement even better because, how many times have you been in groups or families or situations where no one's supportive here? Everybody's got a bone to pick. Everybody's got an issue. Everybody's got a past, versus the other thing where everybody's looking at the future. Everybody's looking at opening doors, enlarging those doors, bringing more people in because there's so much room for more people in because there's so many people out who are doing just the opposite, screaming, disrespecting, and they're getting the attention, but they're not earning it. They're grabbing it. Here, you got to build it one brick at a time, and you got to stay with it long enough. And that's why the people who become the core, which is 90% of people, come here every day. So it's not a surprise what you're going to get every day, and it's not a surprise for them. And I think that's so important. To get back to comments, and then we'll switch it right over to Jackie. Renata had something nice to say. Thank you, Don, for mentioning the call we had last month. For sure. And I hope people are connecting with Renata and Randy and everybody, because you can say we have something in common. We're at the same place at the same time doing the same thing. Be great to say hello. You always got room for a hello. Here we go with good evening. All my friends from Bangladesh, so great to see you. Here's a new individual, Derek from Tucson. Great to see you too. Randy comes back with true gratitude involves showing appreciation for things in life that are meaningful or valuable to you. And you can't stop. There ain't a number big enough to count your blessings. Absolutely. I was the last Agmandino speech that he made in person. Great motivator. And he started out and says, well, how many people in the audience are millionaires? And a few hands raised up. And he said, well, I'll prove to you that you're all millionaires. And he says, raise your hand if you want to give me your eyes for $1 million, right? Or your ears, or a leg, or you just keep going, right? How rich are you? And he says, if that doesn't do it, pick up an obituary and ask yourself, who wouldn't trade places with you right now? Right? And I think when you put it in perspective, it says, what was I thinking? How did I go off when I was right where I needed to be with who I needed to be with? Randy says, taking a moment to notice and acknowledge the things you're grateful for each day can brighten your outlook, boost your mood, and help you feel more positive in the face of challenge. That's so true, and it can keep you in the game. I wouldn't be here every day if I didn't love the hour of empower, because it gives me that hour of empower to start the day. How many times did you leave the house thinking something and you listened to a tape, and when you got to where you're going, you were in a whole different mood? And the world didn't change over that half an hour. You just started to think differently because you started to hear and see differently, repositioning. Renata says, gratitude is the quality of being thankful and appreciative for the kindness, support. Okay, I think we covered some of that. Because I went up and down and all around. So Jackie, why don't you chime in with how we can even build this bigger and better?
I want to focus on the word humility that Enrique was bringing up, to be humble. And congratulations again. That's awesome to have that award. It is great to be recognized, but to have that sense of humility of, we're not looking for that, but when it happens, it's really nice that people can see it. And someone mentioned Charles even if we don't know the results are being seen, God sees it. I like that. That's really beautiful. And that, people do see the work that we're doing, and it may not be like in a statement or an award, but people do see it. But humility is so important. It's like slowing down and taking a step back and realizing what you have right in front of you. So I often tell my students, I had a post about this a little bit ago, and I write about it in my book, is that I learn more from my students than sometimes I think I'm teaching them. And I will tell them that, like, I'm learning from you all of the time. And it's a place of really like taking a step back and observing the scene of what I'm gathering from each individual student in my classroom. They have insights that are so different than adults. They see the world differently. They take time to actually really start to think in many perspectives. I see a lot of this generation being very open-minded. There are a lot of challenges. There are things that happen in school, like people are still getting bullied, but I'm seeing more and more. And maybe I'm in a school where there is a little bit more kindness and gratitude. It's a Quaker school. We practice service, we practice meditation and meeting for worship. So maybe that's just my angle, but they do take the time to really like think about things in various perspectives. And I'm like, that's so neat. Like when I was in school, I did not see that. And I saw a lot of kids being kind of mean to each other and picking on each other and calling each other awful names. And so I'll acknowledge to the students, like, you're doing great work as humans. And this is what we need to see in the world. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to have you in this class, and that I'm not here creating this space for you or just teaching to you, but we're doing this together, just like Don having this community. My classroom and what we're doing in the school is a community, and we're all teaching each other. We're all learning from each other. And with that, there's humility and there's gratitude. And so I think taking a step back, slowing down, and really seeing what people are giving you and how they are enriching your life and being grateful for that, I think is just a wonderful thing to acknowledge, and telling people, taking the time to tell people what they're doing for you. And I see it on LinkedIn all the time. One thing I really love how LinkedIn is growing as a community is people constantly acknowledging other people and lifting them up and supporting them. And it's just so positive. And I think we could be doing that in so many other spaces too. So yeah, I love the word humility. I think that's a big part of gratitude.
Well, Jackie, before we leave you, why don't you share your new book and what it's about, and allow the audience to get to know you a little bit better that way?
Sure. Thank you. My book's called The Guided Teacher. And I wrote this story kind of based off of, I have a podcast called The Teacher Story where I interview teachers all over the world. And then I wanted to share my story in depth about what it was like as a child and then entering the school system as a student, the light and the shadow of that, and then becoming a teacher. And I've taught in various places around the country. And also I've taught in China too. So I have a lot of different perspective, and to lead it to where do I see education going? Because I think that we need more joy in our schools. And students went through a lot in the pandemic, and they've been going through a lot just in general with mental health. And I think we could really make school a place of joy and light and gratitude and building community. So I wanted to share my journey to then get to the place of like, where do I see it going? And all of the stories I've been collecting from the beautiful teachers and people in education on my podcast. So yeah, that just launched in October. And this is a picture of the book. That is a picture my dad took when I was like 7 or 8 years old. So my dad took this picture, and my dad's going to be 78 years old, and he's read it twice already. Like,
Oh,
so sweet. And he's really, really happy that I got to include some of his, he's in the story, but his photograph on the cover. So it's a little bit about the book. Thanks, Don.
well, so that's super. And, with your dad reading it twice, I would consider it already a New York Times bestseller.
Amen.
You should have him do a introduction also to it. But I think that's the benefit. What I was even thinking is people are building their own castles or whatever you want to call them. But how many bricks have you put in other people's walls over time? Right? If you were to collect them all, you'd have a much bigger palace or castle or home than what you have. And realize that's valuable, not only because it was something from you, but it was something to someone else. And most people, they try to keep every brick to themselves. They never have enough. And when they give, they think they have to make up for somewhere else, somehow else. And, the game is always between you and you. You set the rules, you create the punishments, you give yourself the pardon whenever you think is necessary. But do you have the time to follow that process? Right? How fast can you forgive? How fast can you move on? Because fast forward, how much of a loop do you need before you say, hey, I'm just going through the same thing and I'm doing it to myself? And I think to Jackie's point and Enrique's point, and I was actually talking to my son-in-law because my grandson started his basketball season again, which is just great. And we were talking about education, and he's really into high tech, AI, really cool stuff. And I was just thinking, education isn't an education for learning, it should be an education for living, right?
Mm-hmm.
The buildings we built were 30, 40 years ago, even older. The classrooms were meant for that technology, for that interaction. But wouldn't it be better to know how to cook, how to balance a bank book, how to fix a sink? I mean, life
Yes.
skills, because Google will tell you who won the war, who was who, and how many times you ever Google it. So why would you have to know it if you never cared to even look at what someone else would tell you they know? And I think that's what has to happen, is it has to be bottom up. It has to be
Mm.
next to each other. It's not top down anymore. Institutions are not prepared because they're sticky, bureaucratic, political, all that stuff. When you can help the person next door, you can help the person on the show. Everybody got a question they woke up today with, and they might go to sleep with. Why not ask it to 50 people who are here to answer it?
Mm.
Right? I mean, that's the thing. If you're holding on to something, why? And most people don't know. It's because they've always held on to it.
Mm.
It's like when the air raid signal's off, it's like time to get out of the bunker, time to breathe some fresh air. And how fast and how long do you want to be wherever you're at? If people are reaching out to you, say just whatever it is at any level of comfort too, right? So no one's got to give the whole thing. It's like test it, share. And you know what you'll find? You're never as alone as you think. And there's so many people have gone through it or are going through it, but they're in the same boat where they feel like they're going to get judged or they're going to get bad feedback, and that inhibits people. So, anyways, now back to Enrique. We've got the award, we've got the book, we've got uh, everything going for us. Where do we take gratitude next?
Well, and I was thinking about humility, but also about the changes in the educational structure of our world, because we have
Mm.
changed in the way we are digesting information. It's so instant. Before I had to go check out a library book. Now all I have to do is speak to my phone and I have it. Right. So there's been so much change. And when you talk about this new generation, um, and the why, right? There's a lot of why, and I love that. Why can't we explain why we're doing something? What that'll make it easier. You'll get better buy-in, I think, if you do. But we're in a kind of like a plate tectonic, right? We have an old generation about to get out and a new generation sprouting up, and that friction
Mhm.
there is the inability to see the next generation's ploy, right? What they are after. And if we open our minds and just let them live, and then just kind of like dig down and say, hey, all right, I've come this far, what can I do to help? Instead of, this is the way I do it. And you mentioned the corporate setting, right? Corporate setting before used to be, you do it, no questions asked. Now you tell somebody to do it with no questions asked, you're going to have some problem because they don't operate that way. It's like taking an open ocean tug or ship and try to operate it in a river. It ain't going to work. You still got a ship. It floats. It's just not the right water mass, right? So we have to think about our generation like that. Not everything is going to fit, and you have to know when to switch boats. And the older generation need to know how to do that so they can navigate the waters we're living in now. So good on youngers to ask, why, but it behooves the elders to be able to be prepared to answer the why, because that's how this world is turning now.
Absolutely. Let me switch back to our wonderful audience. Dennis says, agree, leadership is a great boat to keep afloat. Keep up your great above water work. Dennis is always our rhymer. Children have a chaffless perspective that adults need. We all need each other for what each of us have for each other. We got so much to share. We've got so much to give. I mean, if anybody with some respect, they could get a 15-minute call with anybody on LinkedIn, right? If you said, I read your stuff, it inspired me, I really love it. Could you have 15 minutes? Nobody's going to turn you down, or not the majority. Help yourself when you can. That's a good way to go. Agree, more joy is joyful. Jackie comes in. Thank you. Randy comes back. Better to put a brick in another person's wall than through the window. What happened?
I love that.
Agree, need to ask to get into the know. If you don't ask, the answer is no. And, I always believe in the Wheel of Fortune strategy. Buy some vowels before you solve the puzzle. Just to make sure. Just, hey, how does it look? Get a sounding board. Never hurts. Paul says, even growing up with my grandparents, I always ask why. The challenge I find today is finding out what's real, which is why your mindset is so important. Outside of physics, everything else is a social construct, the story we tell ourselves. And, I think at the bottom of everything we're saying, the foundation is communication. That's going to be the key to the future, is how people communicate and how people relate to their communication. So, because it's all consistent messaging, right? That's why people believe things that you never think anybody could believe. Unbelievable things are being believed. Why? Because they're being heard and repeated and reinforced. And all of a sudden, it was what they wanted to hear anyways. And I think that's why the live streams are so important, because you can't fake what's happening on the screen right now, right? What you see is what is, and what we hear is what is. And I think that makes it for even more value, because it's genuine, it's real. You hear a quality message from a not quality person, it doesn't feel or the same as the genuine, the authentic. And that's why treating everybody as an equal is important, because if you've done so much more, if you consider yourself so much more, where's the so much more humility you have? Where's the understanding that, I'm twice as something as somebody else? Well, then I should have a little consideration that they're going to be slower than me. And here's the other thing. Don't tell somebody what to do. Help them do it. Right. I mean, someone says, oh, well, you got to go to that speaker in town. Versus, hey, I'll buy a ticket for you. I'll pick you up. Let's go. Right. Because that shows you really care that they go. Right. Versus just telling somebody, here's some great advice. And I think that's the second and third step most people don't take, because they don't take the first step. And how many of these things ever come to be? How many times you ever buy a book and say, I'm going to buy a second one for Jim, right? He could use this. And it's at $10, $15. In a year, if it happened 3 times, you're out $45. You've eaten lunch, you forgot what it was the next day, right? So where's the $45 to your best friend or people who need it? Jackie, what's your thoughts? I mean, this is a cathartic show. Everybody gets to.
This is great. I mean, I'm just commenting with my YouTube LinkedIn. I wanted to be on LinkedIn in the comments, but I wanted to be on LinkedIn and it's YouTube. But hopefully you're seeing them. Everyone's comments are so thoughtful and deep. Like I'm learning so much from all of you. And like Enrique, you have these beautiful analogies and like you talk like you're writing this like literary novel. It's gorgeous. So everyone here is just got this brilliance that they're showing. And we are having this really in-depth conversation because of the brilliance you're bringing. So thank you everyone for sharing all of those insights. And I want to go back to the generation and like older generation. And we talk about this particularly in looking at education revolution, and where we're going is intergenerational work, like bringing the generations together and sharing what those perspectives are and what you can bring to the table. So like an older generation can bring wisdom, right? Life, what you have gone through, what you have lived through. And then the younger generation has that, you know, spark and that energy and that new perspective and grasping AI and technology very, very quickly. You bring those two together, you have magic. And like that's something I'm also, you know, grateful for, is that seeing intergenerational like work. Like what I really would love to see more in schools is this circle of older people, younger people coming together, inspiring each other and learning from each other in that way, instead of, again, teacher, student, top down, because that's really not the way it works anymore. And Don, like you were saying, like these school buildings and the way school has been like this for 30, 40 years. Really, a lot of the way traditional school is from like the 20th century and hasn't changed much. It is starting to change a little bit. And there's a lot of other newer ways of doing it, like micro schools and some alternative education spaces. But it should be about this circle and all bringing something to the table, and that we all have this brilliance and we need to just bring it together. And so I think we're doing that in this community right here. It's like we're all bringing this brilliance and we're doing it like a circle and learning from one another. So, you know, that's something I, again, see a lot of gratitude right within that. Another point I wanted to say about just like the intergenerational is that the students and like younger generations, they want to work with us. Like they really do. They are like, come, please, like bring your brilliance too, and let's work together. There's this wonderful connection of mine on LinkedIn. Her name's Hope Patterson. And she was just on my podcast, the episode that came out today. And she has this network called Hope Sparks Network and also Hope Brain Trust. And she's all about elevating young voices. She brings on kids that are 12 years old that are teaching teachers and teaching older people about AI. And that, yeah, there's some things that you should have trepidation about, but there's also things that are really awesome and that we need to like just learn how to use it as a co-pilot and be able to collaborate with AI. And we could do so much more with that. And I just love that. I love lifting up the young voices and having them share their brilliance, and then having educators and other adults saying, wow, like I'd never thought about it that way. That's so cool. So I think it's just having an open mind, what we've been talking about and what Enrique brought up as well, is I think that's another word that goes hand in hand with gratitude, is being open-minded and being able to explore just new ways of learning things from each other.
Absolutely. And, you know, what comes to mind is when this show has evolved and all organically, is I always wanted to be one of the 48 or 67 in the audience instead of one at the stage and 46 not on the stage, right? So if you can walk off the stage and join hands with the circle and be in that circle, that makes it even more valuable, right? Because you're with people. You know, I think the key element that we're dealing with, which is a simple element, is access, right? I mean, how many people can go to Harvard? for the expense, for the travel, for staying there. But how many people could watch any lecture from there right now in real time? You know, and why not create that opportunity? You know, why not let people self-educate? I think that's so important, right? Why do people need curriculums? Who created those? Who knows the people who are going to be participating in them? But why not just say, make it easy? And you know what I would throw in? Playtime.
Mm.
You know, let's get some exercise. Let's go outside. Let's go on a field trip. I mean, access the world. You know, all I got to know is Google does this, Chat GPT does this, right? If you want a fact, Google this, and that'll save you how many books, how many teachers who are teaching those books, and how invigorating is it for them than if they were just teaching how to tell your story, how to ask a question from someone, how to meet someone. I mean, if it was all communication and life, real skills,
Yeah.
then there wouldn't be a separation between kids because it would all be coming from the same source. The same Google's going to be going to everybody, the same everything else. And a lot of times the older generation wants to retain the older generation, right? Because it's what they grew up with, what they spent their whole life with, you know, and that stunts the growth of everybody who's climbing that ladder, especially the young ones. You know, on LinkedIn, only 2.2% of the people are 55 and older. And what does that say? And they have more time, more experience, more patience probably at this point in their life to be mentors. And you know what it comes down to? You took the personality, the profile, the face, the name away from the person. You're only as good as what you last thought and said, right? And if you just get measured on, hey, what did you just say of value? Well, it doesn't matter if you're 10 or you're 100. You're relevant. You're still in the game. And the person who at 20 who says weird, out of this world stuff is never going to build this type of community. And we're in the minority. You know, this can duplicate, this can ripple. You know, there's 970 million people registered on LinkedIn. Believe me, if everybody knew this show and some shows just like it, you could have 9 million people watching it tomorrow. That would be only 1%. Right? So it's how fast can those 9 million people get notified? You know, this show has launched 12 shows of people who never did a show 6 months ago. And you've got Gretchen with the flight attendant, you've got Kelly with the awesome journey, you got Harvey with the franchise show, Paul's done 3 shows. I mean, how many people have been guests on everybody's show and then became other people's shows? It's powerful, but it only works if you work it. So Enrique, we're coming up on the top of the hour. What's your thoughts as beautiful audience today?
Yeah. So as you was talking, I was thinking about something that I've been mulling over my head. You know, each generation that goes out, right? The ones that are going out, they'll have a lot to complain about the generation coming up. That has not changed since I was born, right? It hasn't changed. But the thing is that we are responsible for the generation coming up. Anything that comes up from the next generation is what we've allowed. And we've allowed technology to replace conversation. One of the most joyous times of me growing up was sitting at the feet or near my great grandfather, where he used to tell me the stories about trading cows and lambs for work. And yeah, there was no real money exchange. It was all property or what you had. And they thought that it was the greatest life to live. And now we have finances left and right, and we're just not happy. And I remember those times because it was a passing down of life. He made me grateful for what I had currently. that I didn't have to go through his, right? And so if we're going to do anything to invest in this current generation, we have to have conversations. If we don't have those conversations, and I have put, it's the difference between being interested and invested. We're just not invested. We're interested because we're listening to all the things that are being said, but we've ceased to be invested. And the moment we do that, we allow the next generation to go their own way. And if you was blind and could make your way through a room, you wouldn't need no devices, but you need it. So let's help this generation out by having invested conversations.
Yeah, I can't say how important that is, and have civil conversations, right? When someone's sitting right next to you, I always say, "What are you raising your voice for?" I'm sitting right here. What is this all about? I can hear your words, and some people may not know that, or now they got called out early. Right? Is this starting to make me, is this supposed to be intimidating? Is this supposed to be scary for me? Because it won't. We won't have the conversation if that's the intent. And I think people have to stand up for themselves and others. And in the past, or what's accelerating, is musical chairs with less chairs and faster music. So, hey, get the higher ground. If you can get the higher ground, that's really valuable ground. But how many people didn't make it? How many people slipped and drowned? And instead of thinking about how do I get to the next level and don't worry about where everybody else is, figure out what's making the water rise, right? Figure out what's making everybody have to go somewhere else and be somewhere else and do somewhere else. And it's scary because too many people have the power of the communication that they didn't deserve, never earned or justified. Right? When I grew up, there was 3 television networks, and at 6 o'clock, every one of those broadcasters said the same exact story, except they said it in their way, right? Their personality. Now, everything that's this way, you can find everything that's that way. And you know what? It's not meant for good. It's meant for manipulation, And I think that's why these shows and people on these shows and in these shows, what we have is influence. The beauty of everybody has 5,000 connections. And we have 50 people here, and maybe 50 more will watch it after. 100 times 5,000 is 500,000. If everybody just shared this show and asked everybody to share a show, and why are you on LinkedIn? But to be an advocate for others. And so many people say, if I didn't create it, I'm not posting it. Well, if I'm not going to post something today, I'm going to post somebody else's today. Right? Why would I let my network go without some sort of nourishment? And it shows a little bit more grace when you say, Dina Lefkowitz or somebody else, hey, I just saw something really cool. I think it's cool, and that's it. Who watches it, who doesn't matter. But I think it's incremental gain that's compounded. Figure out what you could do a little bit more of tomorrow, a little bit better of, just a little bit. Add another line to a comment. Take inventory. How many comments do you make every day? How long does it take to add 2 more lines? Say, I really watched what you put out there, and find a part that says you really did. I love that message, and part of it was this reason. So, Jackie, we're almost at top of the hour. What's your thoughts on the show so far? It goes so quick, because we're always left with more to think and say.
I know. I could do another hour.
Why we have tomorrow?
What came to mind, because I'm thinking about what you're saying, and you just used the word nourishment. And it's funny because as you said that, I was already thinking about nutrition, how we feed our bodies. And then we talk about mental health, how we want to feed our mind. But there's the layer of community health. How do we nourish our communities? And so this is what we're doing today and what we're talking about and what Enrique was talking about and everyone's sharing about how we are going to give to the next generation, what we feed them. And then Paul had a great comment about what we feed AI will be AI. If we feed AI gratitude, love, care, great communication, we're going to get that back, because AI grows and develops by what we feed it. So we got to feed each other. Same thing with our human community. We have to feed each other with gratitude, with love and care, and have the older generations teach the younger generations about that. Like, that's what we should be teaching them, right? And that's what we should be helping them with, is that it's all about community at the end of the day. And community health is really important, just as much as your own physical and mental health. We got to give back to each other. We got to take care of each other. And what you were sharing, Don, about LinkedIn, going and commenting, reposting and sharing something that someone, wrote, is like, that's community health. This is why I'm here. This is why I love LinkedIn. It's all about that.
Well, thank you. I mean, and you've been such an illuminating, bright star to the discussion, because it's really cool how everybody just digs in, right, and gets into it. And maybe it's selfishly unselfish when putting a smile on somebody's face puts a bigger smile on yours than if it was your smile, right? When you give somebody something that they never thought they would get, or was something that came as a wonderful surprise, how do you not carry that in you deep, which motivates you to, again, do something for someone, because actually you're feeling better about doing it for yourself by doing it with them. I mean, how many times do you have a beautiful dinner you wish you could share it with somebody? Or if you're taking a beautiful road trip and you just wish that person next to you was there with you. And what did you do to get them there then? It's too late when you're halfway through the trip, so I wish Bob would have come with me. But you can now make Bob come with you tomorrow. You could be the spark that lights up the world. There was one motivational speaker that had a story of a 90-year-old man who was planting a tree. And a young kid came by and said, "Hey, old man, what do you plant a tree? You'll never live to see it." And the old man says, "Well, there's only two ways to live. One is that you're going to die today, and the other that you're going to live forever." And I've always taken the second mode. So, old and young doesn't mean anything anymore, because most of that time it was separated by physical challenge. Well, they're too old, they can't get there, whatever. So anyways, everything's new again. That's old if we let it. There's value in everybody, everywhere. How do we draw it to us and then build a community that ripples? And that's the goal going forward. So with that, Jackie, Enrique, I know this is the best way I've pronounced your name so far on the show, so I won't say it again. I can't thank you enough for being here. You made it all happen, and we all made it happen for each other. So thank you, audience. Come back tomorrow if you can. I'll tell you exactly who we've got. Tomorrow we've got Jason Gerardo, and we also have Carl Dakin. On Wednesday, we've got Beverly Glazer and Tanya McKee. It just gets better. We have Lisa Goldenthal, who's going to be here Thursday with Kelly, who's brand new and has a great story. So much. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Rest up. Be back in 23 hours. Take care. Bye for now.